Delap to the right of the penalty area. Clever footwork to get into the area. And Delap is holding on for the ball as long as possible. Oh, magnificent finish from Liam Delap. He waited and waited some more.
Chelsea this season felt like a Ferrari with no engine. Flashy, full of promise, but going nowhere fast. One week they played like title contenders. The next, like a mid-table mess. And one of the biggest problems? A striker who just couldn't score in crucial games. But that might be about to change, because Liam Delap is coming, and he might just be the striker Chelsea have been begging for. But what does he change, and what does he bring that Nicholas Jackson does not bring? Let's talk about that. Chelsea's season was confusing to say the least. At times they looked like a team that could compete at the top. There were matches where the pressing was sharp, the passing was clean, and they moved like a proper unit. You'd watch them and think, yeah, this team's cooking. But that never lasted long. The inconsistency was unreal. Just when it seemed like they were building momentum, they dropped points to teams they should be beating without question. It wasn't about effort, the intensity was often there, it was about execution. One game they're cutting through a top 6 side, the next they're struggling to create a single real chance. And if we're being honest, this team had the potential to push much higher up the table, even compete. But one thing consistently held them back. They didn't have a striker who could finish the job. The chances were there, the build-up was often solid, but in front of goal, that's where everything broke down. At the start of the season, there was real hope that he could be the solution up front. He had the physical tools, pace, powers, good movement, and in flashes you could see the potential. But over the course of the season, the same pattern kept repeating. He just couldn't deliver consistently. Finishing was the biggest issue. He got into great positions but didn't take his chances. And it wasn't just a couple of misses here and there, it became a regular thing. Whether it was one-on-ones, tap-ins, or even simple touches in the box, the end product just wasn't there. But what made it even more frustrating was how his timing fell off. Early on, at least he was making the right runs, but by mid-season even that started to go. He was mistiming runs, getting caught offside too easily, or arriving too late in key areas. That kind of movement kills momentum in attack, it stalls transitions, and in a few games it directly cost Chelsea points they should have had. And it wasn't just about missed goals, it was about missed opportunities to control matches and win games. And that's exactly why Chelsea are now looking for someone different up front. And the perfect player is Liam Delap. He's not a flashy name, he's not the kind of signing that's going to dominate headlines, but if you've been paying attention to how he plays, you'll know exactly why Chelsea are interested, and more importantly, why he might be the missing piece. Liam Delap's career hasn't followed the typical path for a young striker in English football, but that's exactly what makes it interesting. He started in one of the most demanding academies in Europe, Manchester City. Being part of that setup means the standards are extremely high. You're competing with some of the best young talents in the world, and even getting noticed is difficult. Delap didn't just get noticed, he made his senior debut for City in 2020 as a teenager, and he even scored on his debut in the EFL Cup.
A few weeks just before the season unfortunately came to an end, but now a chance for City to open the scoring, which they've taken, and it is...
It was a classic centre-forwards goal, aggressive, instinctive and calm under pressure. But with City's first team stacked with elite forwards, Delap needed regular minutes to develop. So like many young City players, he went out on loan. His first major opportunity came at Stoke City in the Championship during the 2022-23 season. It wasn't a standout campaign, but it gave him the experience of week-in, week-out senior football, learning how to deal with physical defenders, tight spaces, and the pressure of needing to perform. It was his loan spell at Hull City later that same season where he started showing glimpses of real growth. He looked sharper, more confident, and more involved in every phase of the game. His decision-making improved, his work rate was consistent. It was clear he was maturing not just physically, but mentally, understanding how to play the role of a modern centre-forward beyond just finishing chances. Then came the real turning point, a permanent move to Ipswich in 2024. That transfer marked a big shift. He wasn't a City loanee anymore. He was now responsible for leading the line at a Premier League club fighting to stay up. It was a high-pressure situation, and despite Ipswich eventually being relegated, Delap stepped up. He finished the season with 12 goals, and more importantly, he proved that he could compete and succeed at the top level. What made that season impressive wasn't just the goal tally, it was the context. Ipswich didn't dominate games, they often had less of the ball and fewer chances, meaning Delap had to work harder for every opportunity. He had to find goals in tight games, under pressure, with limited support. That forced him to evolve quickly, to read defences better, time his runs more precisely, and become more efficient in front of goal. Alongside that, there's the football DNA in his blood. His father, Rory Delap, was a Premier League player himself, best remembered for his legendary long throws at Stoke City. But growing up around the game helped Liam understand what it takes to reach this level. He's always had that grounded approach, the willingness to learn, and the mentality to take on new challenges. At 22, Delap has already experienced top-flight football, multiple loan systems, and the responsibility of being a key player in a struggling side. That journey has shaped him. He's not a prospect anymore, he's a player who's gone through real battles on the pitch and come out more complete because of it. If you really look at the details, it's not hard to see why Chelsea are so interested in Liam Delap, and why he might already be a better fit for the team than Nicholas Jackson. This isn't about potential or hype, it's about how each player plays and what they offer on the pitch, especially in the areas where Chelsea have fallen short. The first thing that stands out with Delap is his movement, and not just basic movement, but the kind of clever, intentional positioning that separates a decent striker from a really dangerous one. At Ipswich this season, even though they were a struggling team and eventually got relegated, Delap showed a level of maturity and sharpness that you just didn't expect from a 22-year-old. He constantly played off the shoulder of the last defender, always looking to exploit small gaps in the back line. But what made it even more impressive was his timing. He didn't just run into space blindly, he waited, he read the play, he watched for cues from the wingers and midfielders before making his move, and that made him far harder to track. Compare that to Jackson this season. He started with a lot of promise, the pace, the physicality, the effort, but too often his runs were mistimed or lacked purpose. There were so many moments where he was caught offside unnecessarily, or worse, he didn't make the run at all. He'd hesitate or arrive too late, and by the time the ball was played, the opportunity was already gone. That's not just frustrating to watch, it disrupts the entire rhythm of the attack. Players like Cole Palmer, who were constantly looking to thread those passes in behind, had no one to truly connect with. Palmer thrives on movement around him. He needs a forward who understands angles, timing and space. That's what Delap offers, and is what Jackson hasn't been able to deliver consistently. Delap's intelligence extends beyond just open play. Inside the penalty area, he plays like someone who's been studying top-level strikers for years. His movement in the box is sharp and instinctive. He doesn't need multiple looks at a chance to react. He attacks space, reads the ball early, and finishes quickly. There was one moment in particular this season against Aston Villa that summed this up. As soon as the wide player shaped up to cross the ball, Delap shifted his body, made a run across the front of the defender and buried the chance with his first touch. That kind of awareness and instinct inside the box is exactly what Chelsea have lacked. Jackson has often been too reactive, arriving too late, or misjudging the flight of the cross. It's not just about missing chances, it's about not being in the right place at the right time to even take them. Then there's the physical aspect of Delap's game, which honestly doesn't get enough credit. He's a big, strong forward, but he moves like someone a few inches shorter. He's agile, quick off the mark, and most importantly, direct. When Ipswich played on the counter, which was often, Delap was the outlet. He gave them an option to hit long, stretch the pitch, and attack quickly. He made it difficult for defenders to push up comfortably because they knew one well-timed pass could send him through on goal. That's a trait Chelsea could use, especially in games where they're being pressed or need to break out quickly. Jackson can run, but he doesn't have the same kind of calculated aggression or the ability to isolate a defender and then sprint away with purpose. Delap times those runs to perfection, and his teammates trust him to get there. But what ties it all together is how Delap plays within the team. He's not just looking to score, he's constantly involved in the build-up. He drops in when needed, links with midfielders and gives the team a focal point. That's something Chelsea have missed. There have been games this season where it felt like the striker was completely disconnected from the rest of the team, isolated, not holding up the ball, not giving midfielders anyone to play off. Delap doesn't disappear. Even if he's not scoring, he's dragging defenders out of shape, occupying spaces and giving the team structure. And all of this, by the way, came from a player in a side that got relegated. Delap managed to stand out not because everything was built around him, but because he imposed himself on the game anyway. That tells you a lot about his mentality. He's not waiting for ideal conditions, he's adapting, learning and improving in real time. You can see the growth from his loan at Hull to his breakout season with Ipswich. There's a clear upward trajectory here. Meanwhile, Jackson, for all his effort, still looks like a work in progress. He's got the physical traits but hasn't developed the striker instincts Chelsea need. That's not to say he can't improve, but if Chelsea want to compete now, if they want to solve the issue that's been holding them back this entire season, they need a striker who's already doing the basics at a high level. That's why Liam Delap isn't just a potential signing, he's a smart, strategic move. A player who fits the profile of modern, aggressive, intelligent centre-forwards. And if Chelsea want to finally get the most out of Cole Palmer, the team's creative engine, they need someone who can read his game, respond to his passes and finish what's being created. Delap gives them that. Jackson at this point just doesn't, but having two of them in the team is a big one for Chelsea. It could be a major advantage, especially with the club heading back into the big European competition. Squad depth in the right areas becomes a necessity, not a luxury. Next season, Chelsea won't just be playing one game a week. Depending on how they go in Europe, they could easily end up playing 50 to 60 matches across all competitions. Managing that kind of schedule requires rotation, tactical flexibility, and options up front that give the manager different profiles to work with. That's exactly what Delap and Jackson offer. Two very different types of strikers, both capable of leading the line in different ways. Delap, as we've already discussed, gives you structure. He's intelligent with his movement, reads the game well and brings a physical presence. He's the kind of forward who helps you unlock compact defences, the teams that sit deep and force you to find openings with sharp timing and smart runs. In Europe, especially in knockout rounds, there are going to be nights where Chelsea will dominate possession but struggle to break through. That's where Delap's box movement and composure in front of goal can be decisive. Jackson, on the other hand, is a more transitional forward. He thrives when the game opens up, when there's space to run into, when the tempo is high and the match becomes more direct. That can be incredibly valuable in away legs or chaotic European group stage matches, where things don't always go according to plan. His pace, unpredictability, and ability to stretch defences still hold value, even if he's not as polished as Delap. And let's not forget, he still scored double digits last season, even with all his flaws. But beyond rotation and matchups, having both players gives Enzo Maresca real tactical flexibility. There are matches where he might want to play two up top, especially if he's chasing a result or facing a team with a high defensive line. Delap can occupy the central defenders and hold the ball up, while Jackson can run off the shoulder into space. That pairing could force teams to defend deeper, giving Chelsea more control in midfield and create more spaces for the likes of Cole Palmer to operate between the lines. It also keeps both players sharp. When there's competition for places, real competition, performance levels tend to rise. Delap, knowing Jackson is there and vice versa, means both players will be pushing to start, pushing to score, and pushing to improve. That's the kind of internal competition that top squads have. You look at successful European teams, they rarely rely on one striker to carry them across a whole season. Chelsea can't afford to repeat that mistake. And let's not forget, Delap is still just 22. He doesn't need to start every game immediately. There will be times when easing him in is the smarter choice, and that's where Jackson's experience from this past season becomes useful. Whether it's a league match against a mid-table side or a group stage game away in Eastern Europe, having two strikers with different strengths gives Chelsea the depth and balance they've lacked up front for years. It's not about choosing one or the other, it's about using both the right way. Delap gives you control, efficiency and structure. Jackson gives you chaos, speed and unpredictability. Together they give Chelsea options, and in a season where Europe is back on the calendar, options are everything. But what do you think? Can Delap lead them back to greatness? Well, let me know your answer in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and check out our last video on Hansi Flick's big problem last season. Thank you.